Hi, Fergus. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Novell?
Doing very well. Thanks for taking the time to speak with me today about Sparks. And I just watched the movie, and it sort of was trippy towards the end. I will say that, but
Yeah.
it was very entertaining because I felt while it did have I was going to pun it and say, well, it did have a spark of, but I didn't want to do that. But you know what? Since it's me, I'm going to anyway. It had a spark of a coming of age film because it has teenage, with teenagers and especially in this kind of a setting and what they're doing and how it starts, it feels like a coming of age film. But there's also some I don't want to say magical because it's really not magical in this sense, but it has a sci-fi element into it. But you didn't really have to go that way in the filming of this to showcase the fact that it has a sci-fi element into it, which I think
Totally.
is really cool. So can you elaborate a little bit about how did this film come into play? Because I understand that this came from something when you were 9 years old. Is that right?
Yeah. Around that time, the image of a
A
body of
reservoir?
water. Yeah, it wasn't a reservoir when it was in my head. It was kind of like a river for a period of time, and then it was like an ocean. I don't know. It shapeshifted over the course of my childhood, but it was this image of someone using a body of water, submerging themselves, and then appearing in a totally new location.
The crop has a set of seven people around it roughly, and I
hmm
understand that you put parts of yourself in each of these characters. How did you decide which parts of you went into each one? How did you see that?
I mean, I think it was easy once. I think I probably did that separation of identities, or parts of my own identity after I'd already kind of fleshed out what was really special and
Okay.
distinctive about each character. And then I was basically in the process of writing the script, remembering feelings and experiences and observations that I'd had, and deciding which of those felt essential to put in a movie about young people hanging out and imagining magic and maybe being capable of harnessing it. So it was kind of it was kind of like a calculus of like, well, now I have this list or this collection of things that I need to include, and I already have a very clear vision of the people who are in this story, and how can I then, disperse the ideas into their identities.
I do have a follow up to that, but I want to reverse course a little bit before I get
Sure.
back to that follow up question because let's tell everybody what Sparks is because this group of friends, English Novell, this group of friends are hanging out, and then someone else comes in into the fold, Cleo, and it kind of disrupts everything. So we could elaborate on that description a little bit, but that's kind of basically where it starts from.
Mhm. Yeah, so the movie is set in Sparks, Nevada, which is a city that's right next to Reno. It's kind of the same as Reno, but it's a different municipality. And the crop is a group of five friends at the beginning of the film who spend all their time on this abandoned or on the side of an abandoned drive-in theater, and they are kind of content to skate and drink and smoke weed, and they sell some weed on the side, through a person who owns a restaurant on the side of the drive-in theater
I
of the
saw
abandoned
that.
drive-in theater. And and I think they're pretty self-satisfied. They're like, okay, we got it down. This is how life should be lived as a high schooler. And that's kind of how you get to feeling in in your echo chamber of high school antics when you're that age. And then this person who, fancies herself a much more enlightened and intellectually stimulated individual, she arrives on the scene. Unbeknownst to them, she has discovered her current obsession, which is John the Goddard kind of
Hmm.
by magic, um, which adds another dimension to kind of like her motivation and her ambitions. But she totally leads them to question this kind of culture they built for themselves, especially the
Yeah.
group's leader, Antoine, who thinks, who's has crisis because he kind of thought he had it all figured out, and now he doesn't really know if that's true anymore. So that's what kind of animates all of this adventure that happens in the film. But once Cleo finds out about this time travel ritual, which the crop has been practicing at a nearby reservoir for maybe 2 years, is kind of what the script indicates. She decides that she wants to use that reservoir portal to reach 1960s Paris so that she can become a muse of Godard's.
The thing that you talk about where they're finding themselves and they were very comfortable with what they were doing already until someone comes in and makes them question themselves. I think that was probably the perfect theme for this film, especially with teenage characters being involved in it, because at that time of your life, you are starting to find yourself at that point, and it can be scary. And the fact
Totally.
that that gets explored in this way, because there are certain facets between each set of characters that gets explored where they're looking at themselves. And there was one scene in particular where there was, and it was the two guys kissing. And I just
Mhm.
literally saw that and I went like, okay, that probably wasn't something that they, by they meaning the characters themselves,
Yeah,
wanted to explore at all, and then all of a sudden that happened, and then it's just like, well, we can't go back anymore.
totally.
I think that for watching all of them just sort of come into their own being, I think that really exemplified throughout the film. So I was very happy that you said that this was in essence the catalyst for them. So I really appreciate that statement. And I wanted to ask the callback that I mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
were there any surprises to you, as far as, and by that I mean, did you see a character that surprised you the most that was more in tune of who you are as a person than you least expected?
That's a good question. I think that once we cast the roles, I no longer believe that I was really represented by the characters in a good way. You know, they really all my
Fair.
actors really took took the characters and transformed them or
Mhm.
kind of not customized but grew them and
Yeah,
now I can't think of anyone except I mean I know a lot of the actors are very separate from their roles but they also have a lot of the same qualities as the characters they play in terms of how they performed so I feel like I lot in a good, in a very creatively generative sense. I gave them away, and then they became new people in the hands of the actors.
I like that. Okay, I like that. I I mentioned something in the beginning about how it was trippy for me, and I think that was a part, and part of that was because of there was a question that was asked, and it was, "Were you actually in Paris,
Hmm.
or were you somewhere else?"
Hmm.
And to me, it just it didn't trip me out in a bad way. It just tripped me in asking the question, is Paris what you make of it, kind of a thing, when that question was asked. And
Yeah.
that may have been my interpretation, which may not have been the correct one,
Mm.
but that's where I took away from it, from that one question itself, because I'm sitting here going, I know that she wanted to, Cleo wanted to be in 1960s Paris,
Yeah.
and Goddard and everything, and experience that life. But I'm also going, isn't that what you make of it? What your life is? So I'm kind of just, for me, when that question was asked, I'm going, maybe she wasn't in Paris. Maybe this was just something she is envisioning. I need to envision, kind of a thing. So it's not real
Yeah.
for her as well as for us. But that's how I took it. And I want your opinion on my statement of my interpretation of that.
I think that's awesome. I love the ambiguity and the lack of certainty that the experience of Cleo and the disappearance of Cleo creates, I think that we should be able to believe that this movie is not magical and that everyone is kind of just using their imagination. But also, if we change our minds and second guess ourselves and wonder if time travel is actually real and it is actually possible, then I think that's normal too. And I don't like, or I'm glad that the uncertainty is in the air. I think it's a good thing.
I think, yeah, and I think it was for me because it just basically, as you said, we really didn't know what happened with her, with Cleo, at all throughout. And like, she went missing, we don't know. And then we're seeing this. person watching these films. And I'm just sitting here going, did she just get immersed in the films that she was watching and felt that she was actually present
Totally.
in those films at the time? And that's where she feels is her Paris. And that's where she was at in her mind.
Yeah.
So for me, that's kind of where I took it. And that's why I'm going like, it's pretty much what you make of it. No matter if you were, as you just said, we did time travel back in time or we did not. It's just what we make of it. And I think
Yeah.
that's really how I saw once we got to that point in the film for me. And I think that's really a callback to the theme that we were talking about is finding oneself. So
Totally.
it works on in those levels. Um, Premiering at South by Southwest, what do you feel that hopefully people take away from this? We kind of touched on it with my response as well as your response to my last thought process, but what do you feel that audiences may or should take away from this when they see it?
I mean, I wouldn't want to prescribe anything that I'd like anybody to take away from it, but I think, there's so many different parts of the movie that speak to different people. What I think will translate for hopefully everyone is this is a sense that the force of our will and the force of our imagination is uh, often underestimated when we're in situations where we're either bored or unsatisfied or looking for something that we don't have or don't think is possible in the near term. And when we actually indulge that will and that imagination, we have the power to do a lot and to kind of occupy ourselves and animate our lives and be present and and maybe after watching people remember that or be reminded of it.
I hope so. And as we wrap up here, let's give everybody when it's premiering at South by Southwest, so people can go to the screenings of it. What dates and what times?
Totally. It's premieres on March 12th, which is a Thursday, next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And then there are second and third screenings on March 13th at 3:15 p.m., I believe, and March 14th at 10:15. And they're all at Alamo Drafthouse, South Lamar.
Perfect. And we'll have this information on our website as well, guys. So make sure you guys go there. You'll be able to see all the dates and times. So you'll be able to attend these screenings. And
Awesome.
I really appreciate your time with me today to talk about this and letting me know my own thoughts about what Sparks meant to me, basically. And I really do appreciate it. And best of luck with South by. I'm
Thank
very
you.
proud, very
Thanks,
proud.
Novell. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.